We are spiritual beings going through a human existence. We've got a health issue in our community, in our black and brown community. We don't.
Am I saying it wrong?
You good. That must mean the Lord is telling you.
Welcome in, everyone, to the greatest financial literacy podcast on the planet, NBA Unplugged, where today Professor Young and I are bringing in a different dynamic to the podcast of business for you all. Now, our guest here has over 18 years of experience in ministry, actively helping people build relationships and helping people find their purpose. Then, once they have found their purpose, really teaching people to really embrace it within their purpose. Now, since 2017, he has served as the lead pastor of Impact Church. Today, we all have Mr. Paul Thibodeaux. Mr. Thibodeaux, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How about you, Charles?
I'm well. Professor Young, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Now, first, before we begin, Mr. Thibodeaux, I would like to really introduce yourself to the people. So, if you could give a little background about your background, education, things of that nature.
Okay. Hey, everybody. It's great to be with you for this time this evening. Name's Paul Thibodeaux, as Charles mentioned. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I've been in Atlanta since 1994, so this is actually home now. I came to Atlanta for warm weather and sweet tea, and I found both of them. But in addition to that, I came to accept my first job as an architect via Iowa State, where I played college football, was fortunate to obtain a college football scholarship, and came here after that, majoring in architecture and football. Found Atlanta someplace warmer, which is what I was looking for, and this was where I got my first chance to work as an architect. Spent 6.5 years working here as an architect, then heard a different calling. I was reaching a point when I had to make a decision on which direction I was going in life, heard a different calling to then accept my call to ministry, and therefore, rather than build buildings, I changed my profession to building people. And since I've accepted my call in 2003, in the Methodist Church, I've worked my way through to now being the lead pastor, which I've been the lead pastor for a year, Charles. I've been at Impact since 2017.
Okay, I apologize.
But no worries. But the only reason I say that is I certainly owe respect to the founding pastor who founded Impact in 2007. And I've been there since 2017, so you're correct on that, but then been the lead pastor for the last year.
That's awesome. So I know you did mention a little bit about Impact Church. So for people who aren't really aware of what Impact Church is or have never heard of it, what is Impact Church?
Well, Impact Church, our vision is we're an inclusive gathering of people committed to holistic salvation and doing Christ's work in the world. So you may ask, what is inclusive mean? And that means everybody's welcome, everybody's valued, everybody has a purpose. And we want to make sure that anybody that steps in our doors feels that. They feel a sense of being welcome. They feel a sense that they're valued. And so that's what the inclusive means. And then as a people gathering for holistic salvation, what holistic salvation means is we have 6 pillars that we try to focus on, whether it be spiritual, whether it be emotional, whether it be financial, whether it be physical, whether it be professional, or whether it be relational. Those are the 6 pillars that we focus on to make sure that all those areas in persons' lives are touched in some kind of way as they work to then find their purpose. And then doing Christ's work, we want to make sure that everybody in the world or the world around us has an opportunity to learn about Christ from the way of our church. So that's what Impact is. And our tagline is doing church differently. And so what that means is that's our approach to how we do church. There's a lot of things in church that you would see that resemble each other and that are the same. But we wanted to make sure at Impact that when you come to Impact, it doesn't necessarily feel churchy, because the sad commentary is that's what turns people off. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure, back to everybody feeling welcome, everybody feeling valued, everybody feeling like they have a purpose. We didn't want to do anything to turn people away. We wanted to do anything that we can to bring people in. And so it's our approach to the way we do ministry, to the way we do sacraments, to the way that we touch the community, to the way that we do our worship on Sundays. Everything is in our approach to how we do it differently. So therefore, we pride ourselves on doing church differently. That's what Impact is.
That's awesome. Now, I know some of you may be wondering, we just had a franchise guest, a business guest, and now we switched to church. Now, before you start to ask questions, there is a financial background to the church that most people really don't understand. So before we get into that, I want to say we are in a new building here. If you guys do not see, we are in the Gordon Joyner building in the Shirley Massey Leadership Center. So we have the Bank of America Auditorium, and here we are. I want to give a special shout out to Ryan Mathis behind the camera. None of this is possible without Ryan, and also Professor Young. So speaking of the church playing a financial role, Mr. Thibodeaux, what kind of role does the church play in teaching financial literacy?
Well, I mean, certainly we believe that learning to be a steward of your financial resources is the most important part of being in church, because we certainly teach that everything that we've been given is given to us by God, and so we are managers of that, meaning we are stewards of it. And so if you're going to be the best steward of your financial resources, then you got to have a way to be taught that. You got to have a way to learn through it and grow through it. And certainly as Black and brown folks, we haven't done our best in teaching generation after generation how to be the best stewards of finances. And so what better place to do that is in a church, because in a church, not only are you learning to get closer to God, but you are learning how to get through life. And so our role at Impact is to try to make sure that people understand how to be the best stewards of their financial resources. What does it mean to be a steward? Well, it means to learn what it means to give back. It means to learn what it means to take care of the community. And it also means how do you be part of some divine work? And how do you do that throughout your financial resources? And so we're actually at the beginning of 2024, our goal is to create a financial literacy small group / course that people can go through, whether it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or however long it will be, but it will be a repetitive course so that it's always available for people, because that's one of the most important things. And if you think about it now, I don't know how many people know much about the Bible, but even I can tell you a little something, and that's it's more than 3,000 verses about money.
Wow.
Because certainly the Lord knew that that's what we would struggle with. And so if that's an important part of our struggle, then there certainly should be something that we should be able to teach on.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that, because I always, it's always to me when going through school and, it's always church and state. That's all they talked about, And I always like, well, there's a money part to this too.
Absolutely.
But Paul, you're from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. Tell the viewers about who you are and and how you actually got to this place, because a lot of people we've spoken to is always about purpose. You're finding your purpose, and how did you find yourself at this stage in your life? Because everyone's got a calling.
Yeah.
And obviously God called you to lead people spiritual and religious way. God called me to teach these two knuckleheads here. But I love them. But anyway, how did you get? I mean, you're a football player, man. You were losing every game in Mount Carmel, and I was going to do that. But you're a football player. You were fortunate to go to Iowa State and play at a high level and be an architect at a high level, and now you're here. So how did you walk us through that?
I think, well, first let me say I believe that Jeremiah 1:5, if I could quote a scripture, it says that before I knew you, before you were formed in the womb, I knew you.
Right.
And so that means we all have a purpose that we were created to do. Mm-hmm. And I think part of our job in life is to be patient, to be open, and to be willing to experience everything that you do in life.
That's right.
So that you can start to learn what your purpose is. If we think about that scripture, I think that all of us have a timeline that stretches across our life. And if we look at it, there's some things that will connect us to what we're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. If we think about that scripture, before you were formed in the womb, I knew you. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I just consistently tried my best to enjoy life and enjoy the people around me in life and enjoy the opportunities that were before me. And I always knew that they were leading somewhere.
Right.
If it wasn't the best that happened to me in life, everybody goes through seasons when it's not the best, when they go through some tough times. And I've had certainly plenty of tough times in my life, but I always knew that they were leading me somewhere. And so I believe if everyone understands that all of our experiences are leading us somewhere, then that helps us stay in the midst of our journey. And so for me, my journey was, football ended up being a talent that I had, and it ended up being something that got me to college. I remember after my senior year, I broke my leg my sophomore year, both bones in my shin, the tibia and the fibia. And then my junior year, I fractured my leg 5 inches below where I broke it. So then when I came into my senior year, the questions were, am I going to make it through a whole year? And I knew that those things were leading me somewhere. I mean, I couldn't have gone through that trauma for nothing.
Right.
And so I ended up then going through the whole year. And at the end of the year, I remember my football coach telling me that I could go to any of 50 universities, around the country. Had no idea that would happen to me. But I ended up declaring architecture, so then that took care of a lot of schools, because only schools that had architecture programs were recruiting me. And even then, I knew that it was leading somewhere. And then as people told me that it's hard to major in architecture and play football, I just said I wanted a chance. True enough, it was difficult. I graduated and I got a degree, but I probably was more the talent of a sophomore in architecture because of all the time I spent playing football.
Okay.
And so then when I graduated, I ended up, the person that gave me a job in Atlanta, watch this, the person that gave me the job in Atlanta played football at Georgia Tech and majored in architecture. So when I got to interview him and he saw my portfolio, he could see that he could understand my journey because he did the same thing. So he ended up taking a chance on me. Remember, all these things lead somewhere.
So it's almost like you gotta trust the process.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You
just got in my pocket because I was getting ready to get to trust the process.
Yep.
And then after that, continuing in architecture and doing that for 6.5 years, then I reached to the point I mentioned that I had a crossroads of what was to be next. And that's where I heard my call to ministry. And, I would say now that in what I do, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but I wouldn't turn it down for the world. Wow. Because I know that it's definitely a calling. It's not something that, I made that choice to be in. It's something where I was led to through the process to then find my purpose. And so to answer your question, I believe if everybody understands there is a process and it's all leading you somewhere, if we don't get discouraged by the journey but stay in the midst, even when it gets difficult, that's going to end up leading us somewhere.
Now, Pastor Thibodeaux, I want to add on to what you said because there are a lot of students right now. They say college is the best time of your life, but it can also be the most challenging time of your life for some individuals, depending on their situation. So if there's someone who is matriculating along their journey and maybe they're coming up on some hard times or just some hard experiences, and it's really tough for them to continue to see it through, what advice would you give recommending students to really stick through that journey, through those hard times, and really focus on finding your purpose, if that makes sense?
I'd say 2 words: keep moving. It's easy to. Nobody wakes up and is motivated to just go through the day every single day. There may be mornings that you wake up and you feel great, but nobody wakes up and just feels motivated every single day. Motivation comes from keep moving. And when you keep moving, then that gives opportunities the chance to open up. And so I would never stop moving, meaning get up and go to class even though you might not feel like it, because you give the opportunity for something to happen. Get up and get some food in your body because you give the opportunity for something to happen. Sometimes, most times in life, you just got to show up. And if you show up and keep moving, then you put one foot in front of the other, then that gives you the encouragement to do the next thing. And if you show up and have a good breakfast, then that's going to give you the motivation is a byproduct of just keep moving. And so that's really the advice I have is don't give up on moving, because that creates the opportunities when you keep moving.
I like that a lot, what you just said. You show up, you give yourself a chance. You give yourself a chance to have that opportunity, because if you don't show up, that opportunity is missed.
You have no chance.
You know,
you have no chance.
Yeah. So
I mean,
I love that.
I think I don't know how much the both of us talked about Michael Jordan, but is it him that said, the only chance, the only shot that you miss is the one you never take?
That's right. That's right.
And so and that's true.
It's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true. It's very true.
So, Pastor Thibodeaux, I want to add on something that you mentioned earlier when we talked about the financial literacy piece of the church. Now, growing up in a church in the South or wherever, really the black church, you're taught tithe 10 to 20% of your income. That's giving back to the church. Now, what's the importance of people, like you mentioned earlier, through Impact, y'all have many different programs. What's the importance of people giving back to the community, not just giving a monetary value to the church? What's really the impact of giving something on the level of their time versus just their money to the church?
Well, I think number one, it builds community.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Everybody needs community. Everybody needs some encouragement from others that are surrounding them. And number one, it builds community, and so that's another reason one reason for using your time and your talent to be involved in something other than just your financial resources. And then it gives you a chance to be part of something bigger than you. I mean, that's what life is really all about. I mean, in the last 4 months, I've buried 4 people under 50.
Oh, wow.
And what I'm starting to realize is when it's done, it's done. And you don't get a chance to do it again. And so if you learn that it's bigger than you, because once it's done, there's no more you, it's only what you left behind, then that should give us an incentive of understanding how important it is to pour into somebody else.
Right.
And now I've got my own definition of success. Success has nothing to do with us individually, in my opinion. What success means is, 1, if you are bringing somebody with you, and 2, if you are making somebody else better from what your experiences have been. That's when you have success, because then you're leaving something with you. And so building community and having a chance to be involved in something bigger than you is the reason for being involved within the church outside of just financial resources.
That's so spot on, because I can relate to that 100%, because when I'm teaching and I talk to my guys and stuff, and women that from Spelman taking my class, I'm looking at them and say, I'm 58, 30 years from now, if God blesses me to be here, if I'm not here, that's my legacy. Yeah. That's the people that I'm touching. Those are the people that, like, I remember Professor Young, he helped me look at something this way and making a better decision because of him. Right. And that gets me, in terms of the hair on my body just stands up, because I know, and we talked about this, it's to me, it's purpose driven. Right. I mean, that's all it can be. Because I always tell this story, and I've told it before. Someone had told me I was going to be teaching here in 1988 as a graduate. I told them, no, that's not going to happen. Right. So for me, you just, if I can help a young student, even the ones that have given me a hard time, they know they're giving me a hard time. They come around and say, hey, I really appreciate what you taught me. I got this job. I feel proud of myself. That's what I want to instill. Right. That pride. Because as a people, church has always been that anchor. Right. It's always been there from the civil rights on. It's always been that anchor. But education is always that. It can be that anchor as well, where they're not only they're learning in church, but they're learning in the classroom, and bringing all that together. Right. They become better people. Right. So
and Charles, if I may, you made me think about something, Professor Young, and that's in addition, when you mentioned the young students that are out there, I think people that have had experiences have to be able to do 2 things. They got to be able to look in the mirror to see themselves, but also to look out as a window to see the rest of the world, because then that keeps us relatable. Because what somebody, me, I'm 56, what somebody's going through now at 26, there's nothing new under the sun. So I mean, there's so many things that are similar, but the experience is different. And so it's important for me to be able to look at myself and see my experience, but also be able to look at it through a window to see somebody else's experience, and to be able to relate to them where they are, and be able to listen to them as much as I desire for them to listen to me.
Now you brought up a good point when you said look at the mirror, and it's almost what I'm kind of concluding is that everyone has been through an experience that you're experiencing already. So let's say someone is going through a hard time. and maybe they don't know what to do, there's always help to reach out to. And I know
Absolutely.
a big part of that is through the church. Now, let's say if someone wants to reach out to Impact, is there some type of reach out that people can reach out to really get that help if they're going through a hard time?
Absolutely. I mean, we have, well, number one, our Sunday experiences are from the top down, meaning from, myself to everybody else that's on staff or volunteers. Our goal is radical hospitality to make sure that everybody that comes in feels like this is a place to be welcome. And then once they're welcomed, then we have a connection corner, which our connection corner is just that. What it says is how to be connected.
Wow.
And so what people can do is come, they find the connection corner, and if they have questions about, what they can be involved in or what they need, then there's a place to, give them direction, to what services they need. And what we hope to do is, certainly we can't answer every question. We hope to be a resource so that we can then point them in the direction to where they can find some answers.
So did you just say radical? What did you say?
Hospitality.
That is, you running a business from that standpoint. And not to disrespect the church or anything, what you're doing, but for me, the first thing it's like, wow, that's like just being, what do they say, having hairy, audacious goals, or just being overzealous about customer service. Absolutely. And that kind of stuff. Because I've been there, and I feel that when people greet you a certain way, people look at you a certain way, I feel the energy. Yeah. Now, having grown up Catholic, we can relate to this. Yeah. You don't get that.
Right. Right.
So it's different. Mm-hmm. The experience is different. It's like, okay, I'm about to hear the word. Right. I'm about to get something out of this. And when I leave, I feel like there's a little bit of extra step that I have because of that experience. So I didn't look. That's pretty cool that you say that you look at it that way. But let me ask you.
Well, and then if I also may add, we don't call our church services. We call them an experience. And anytime somebody mentions church or what time of your services, we help them understand it's an experience.
It's an experience.
It's not a service. We want the minute you get out of your car and the minute you hit the door, we want it to be an experience that starts from there.
And how many organizations, be it business, not-for-profits, whatever the case might be, at the end of the day, they say they want you to have a great experience.
Right.
And if that experience is not, if you don't have a great experience, you need to address it. Mm-hmm. So, but let me ask you something. And get it on the business side of the church, and people to understand. How do you look at a church? I teach my students about financials and how to look at a company. Obviously, you look at a church differently. But how do you view your church? How do you plan? In terms of your the money that's coming in, your operations. How's the business side of the church look? Is it any different than running a business, or you have the same stresses that most small businesses have, and they're trying to bring in revenue? I mean, what is that like? Because you're the CEO.
All the above. A church is a business because we have we are sustained by tithes and offerings, but that's our revenue. And so you have to base your revenue off of your expenses. And your expenses include who you have on staff, everything on your operations side, what it costs to then upkeep the building, and then what it costs to do ministry, what it costs to be effective in ministry. So if you're going to be effective, then you have to run your business to help you be effective. If you don't have the financial resources to pour into the community, it's going to be hard to be effective. Mm-hmm. If you don't utilize how you base your staff and what your operation costs are based on what your income is and what it costs to then pay for to keep the building upkeep and then what it also costs to then pour into the community. If you don't have a fiscal budget and work through that yearly to then figure out how best to operate that so that you continue. We're not here to make money. We're here to utilize. No, but a lot of people don't. I mean, we're here to build resources to then pour back into the community. That's
so that money you're just reinvesting.
Absolutely. And so if you're going to do that effectively, then of course you have to certainly run it like a business, and you have persons that are, as I mentioned, on staff that have to have specific tasks to run. So you've got to be able to utilize your resources to then compensate them. And then again, in addition to then pouring back into the community. And in the Methodist Church, which Impact is, it's a connectional church. So we tithe back into the connection of all the other Methodist churches.
Okay.
So
I didn't know
that
that.
we have to make sure that that's like paying a tithe back into the community of churches. So then they can utilize it for the outreach all around the world. And so you have to then be able to manage your finances so that you can pay your tithe back into the community. Now that's in addition to what we do as a local church. That's pouring back into the connection of the rest of the Methodist Church. And so we have a yearly budget that we have to upkeep and make sure that we are doing our best to meet that budget and come in without losing money. And then the only difference is we have the faith aspect. And so as a church, if we're teaching others to have faith that this journey, this process is going to be all right, then we have to allow ourselves to be open to what God's going to do in the church as well. So there's a faith aspect. You still want to be fiscally responsible and you don't want to do things willy-nilly, but you still leave it open for the opportunity for God to show up and show out in ways that you can't even believe, that's the way that we live as well. And so we want to teach people how to live within the church and teach people how to live outside of the church. But that certainly has a foundation of a business, because the church is a business itself. We have to function financially just like any other business or nonprofit does.
Now, Pastor, you added another point that I wanted to bring up when you said it's almost like you're tithing or reinvesting back into the community. So most viewers have probably heard of New Birth with Dr. Jamal Bryant or Greater Travelers Rest with Dr. E. Dewey Smith. But we're starting to see a new trend of churches being more than just experiences or services. So I know you said reinvesting back into different ministries. Can you add on to things Impact offers? I know you maybe have like food pantry you mentioned, and classes for. If you want to mention some of those.
Sure. We used to do food distribution. Let me pull back and say what's important is that sometimes businesses, organizations. This is not an indictment, but sometimes we go to the community and do what we want to do rather than looking to see what the community needs. And so what we need in our close proximity of community, because we have to ask the question, if Impact were to just blow up one day, would the community miss it? And I ask staff that and volunteers that all the time. If Impact were to just blow up and no longer be there all of a sudden, would the community miss it? And if the answer is no, then we've got a problem.
No, you haven't listened to like a business. You haven't listened to your customers.
Absolutely. Yep. And so what we found is that our community is a food desert. Our community needs some help with our household income. So it means that we need to provide work for the people that are in the community that are coming out of high school. We found that our partnering schools need, our child well-being index, which is our third grade reading and our eighth grade math scores, are much lower than what they could be because of the potential of our young people. And we're also finding out that we've got a health issue in our community, in our black and brown community. We don't do well at taking care of ourselves. Our obesity level is off the charts. We are not doing our screening and testing and doctor's visits in the way that we should. So those are the needs that we meet. So when you ask the question, what are we doing? We are part of a Choose Healthy Life program. So we have had health screenings and health testings on campus. We've had a health center on campus. We've had mobile mammograms on campus. And so we're doing things to help bring the attention of health to our community. We're also, as I mentioned, the workforce, where we've had partnerships with like SEPCA to where people can be certified to work in construction and then walk out of a 12-week class to then go and work. And then the third thing I want to mention is we're getting ready to create learning spaces. If I go back to the Child Wellbeing Index, our children are not reading at third grade levels the way that they should. One of the reasons why is that they don't have as many words because they're not used to learning new words. And so how do we help that? United Way does a program called Learning Spaces, which we're going to partner with them, where it teaches parents of children birth to 5 to learn how to be teaching parents, to learn how to be better parents at home, so that they can teach their young children different words. So by the time they get to 3rd grade, then they're better at reading. Simple things like, I'm in the grocery store, and when you pick up some cereal, you read that to your child and know that in some way they're going to keep learning words. And that's how young people learn how to read, is because they have an exposure to the vocabulary.
And
that's one of the things that we're getting ready to start for 2024. So those are some initiatives we have, in addition to the food pantry, as you mentioned. Every Tuesday and Thursday and Sunday, persons can come for the community. They receive a bag of food, and they receive an opportunity to receive toiletries, toilet paper, paper towels, things that they may need. And so that is open to the community every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
That's awesome. Now, that breaks up a good point, because the last guest we had on, we talked about finance and really getting exposed to that early on. And it's really the same thing, like you said, with reading literacy, just
Absolutely.
The exposure to it early on, but that really correlates in so many different ways of life. But I really want to pivot the conversation here, because I know, since you said you've been at leadership since 2017, and during 2020 we had COVID, and I really want to ask you, how did COVID really affect the layout of the church that we know and really impact?
Well, I will say, Charles, I'm happy. In building a business, you have to think 10 years out, not just for what's going to happen next year. So when COVID came, we were already online. We were already remote. So it wasn't something that we had to learn once COVID came. We were already prepared.
A lot of places had to learn how to
Absolutely.
do it. Yep.
And we were already prepared. So then all we had to do was then start filming our experiences, and we already had the vehicle, which was our online remote space, to then put it online. So it's a blessing that we haven't skipped a huge beat. And so now, and it's all about attitude in the process too. So now a lot of persons talk about how COVID has been a detriment. We're not talking about how it's been a detriment. We're talking about what an opportunity it's been. Remember, as you go through this process, everything has an opportunity. It might not be the best. It might not feel the best, but it is an opportunity. It depends on if you want to go find it. And so our in-person attendance now, we're doing quite well. We're averaging over 700 people per attendance. Now, that is a dip that pre-COVID, we were averaging about 2,000.
Okay.
So it is a dip, but it's certainly not in the way that it could be, because COVID was a change for everything. But again, we're still looking at it as an opportunity. So we're saying to people, look, we're back in the building. We're taking precautions. We're looking beyond this year. We're looking beyond the expectations of what can be in the future. And so we've continued our online audience, and that's grown. And we've also picked back up our in-person attendance. And so we're looking forward to just greater opportunities. Now, ministry itself certainly is different. I don't want to play like it isn't. Okay. But we're trying to find the opportunities in what happens. It's, life is and this is in my bio. Life, and I didn't coin this phrase. I don't remember who did it, but it's certainly true. Life is 10%, 90% what happens to you, and 10% how you react. I'm sorry, it's reversed. Life is 10% what happens to you, and 90% how you react. So it's not about what happens, it's about the opportunities that you find. And there's always, we always have options. Yeah. It might not be the options that feel the greatest, but if it's an option, then it's another opportunity. Yeah. If it's an option, it's another highway for you to think about going down, instead of thinking you've got one road to get you there.
Yeah. Well, you really, to me, and we talk about entrepreneurship on this channel, we always stress it. And I'm glad you mentioned it. You're an entrepreneur. Oh, absolutely. In a lot of sense, you are. Because when you said, I'm looking 10 years out, we were already prepared. That's an entrepreneur, as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely. The second thing, and it sounded like what you said, that you guys were at 2,000 in terms of attendance, right? Before COVID. Now you're about a 700 to 1,000, whatever. I'm not, if I heard you right. But have you missed a beat in terms of, has that impacted your revenue, or that dip It's just now just sitting online. So, net, you're still okay.
Net, we're okay.
So you have positioned yourself not only to take that hit, but but your revenue didn't take a hit. It's just your attendance shifted.
Absolutely.
It's just okay.
And we've taken and it depends on what you determine as a hit. I mean, we're probably 10% down in what our giving is. But that's not a hit to me. That's another opportunity.
Yep.
And if you figure out ways on how you can utilize what you have and not try to think about what you don't have, if you utilize what you have, then ultimately that's going to continue to then build back up. It's part of the process.
That's good work. There's
really a blessing to every setback. But Pastor Thibodeaux, I really want to kind of bring this conversation to a different point of view of, I know we mentioned it earlier on how does someone find their purpose. I know, like I said, we have a lot of college students here. People, they get all this information. We have different franchising, we have finance, and now we have even ministry. Like, I know you started off in football and then construction, and then it came to ministry where you are today. How does someone find their purpose if they haven't found it? Or how does someone know they've even found their purpose? I know it's a very complex topic, but if you could break it down a little bit for us.
So as I mentioned, I believe everybody has a timeline. Everybody has not a timeline meaning you have a certain amount of time. A timeline meaning that everything adds up. And so if everything adds up, what best way can you figure that out? But then look back at all of your experiences and to then notice how they add up. It's like a math problem. You've got to 2 and 2 plus 2 equals 4. Then you keep figuring out the formulas that then help you find an answer. What's the same thing? So y'all might be saying, well, what does that mean? Write down your experiences. The dullest pencil is better than the sharpest mind. Meaning, if you write something down, you can always go back and look at what you wrote and then figure out and see how the experiences start to tie themselves together. So a lot of times we participate in things in life and we forget all about it. And we can't go back and remember. So the moment you got out of a traumatic situation, a lot of times we forget how we got out of it. Yeah. But oftentimes that's going to help us get through the next one. But if we don't write it down, we don't see how that can help us get through the next moment.
That's right.
And so I mentioned earlier to keep moving. I didn't say how fast you move, and I didn't say how slow you move. Sometimes your movement is fast. Sometimes your movement is slow. Yeah. Sometimes you sit still enough to think about what is happening so that you can discern what you are to do next. Sometimes you quicken the speed. Sometimes you've got to make a decision right away, or else the opportunity will leave. Or sometimes you sit back and wait. But either way, if you keep moving, whether it's fast or slow, it's all going to be connected. It's all going to work itself out in some kind of way. And I think finding your purpose is understanding, if you believe that whether it's slow or fast, if you keep moving, your pieces are going to add up. You can't figure out your pieces are going to add up if you don't know what pieces you have in place. Right. And so I think it's important to go back and every piece, every experience that you go through. If you're a child and your parents are going, through a divorce, if you're a child and you're raised by a single parent, if you grow up, you get married and you thought you were going to be married for the rest of your life, and then you end up going through a divorce, all those pieces end up fitting together if you certainly look back at them and see how you can grow from each experience.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah, because
when I look at my life, everything I've done professionally, playing basketball and all that, and my dad hounding me about my math and reading, and everything led me up to today. Yeah. I mean, and I can see that. And when I started journaling, writing it down. When I started journaling, when I go back and look at my journals, oh my God, I actually got through that. Yeah. Or look how much I've grown, and that just keeps me moving. Yeah. So and as dull as it sounds, or as nerdy as it sounds, journaling is not only therapeutic, but it is your roadmap to where you're trying to get to.
Absolutely.
And as an entrepreneur, as an educator, as a small business owner, as a CEO, as a church leader, whatever the case might be, no matter what path you guys are on, and the students, I tell the students this every day, write your stuff down. Write down where you've been. Write down where you're going. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
And because, like Nick Saban says, I'll say it all the time, and Nick says it all the time, don't waste a failure.
Right.
Write it down, learn from it.
Right.
See why did we throw that interception? Okay, we need to fix that. Even when they won against Auburn, first thing he said, look, it was a tough game. We won this game, and usually these kind of games you win, and then the next game we're going to lose.
Right.
So he's already telling himself we got to get locked in. Right. We got to figure out why we were in this situation, so it doesn't happen again against Georgia. That's all he was saying.
And you think about what you've mentioned. You think about being a student in school. Everything that you have to do, you're studying, you're reading, you're trying to comprehend. Well, life is the same way. I mean, if we're studying to try to figure out how to pass this psychology test, if we're studying how to figure out how to pass this financial exam, we got to study to try to figure out how we're going to get to where we need to get. Well, life is the same way. I mean, and if our life should have a vision. We have visions for fraternities, sororities, businesses, schools. Why don't we have a vision for our own life? What do I want to see my life end up looking like? And if I remember, that's the process. If I know that it's leading me somewhere, then that's going to keep me moving, trying to get there.
Yeah. Ryan, I saw your eyes went up in the air. Did he hit a point there or something? Made you think? It's good for you, isn't it?
I can just say this has really been good because I understand like this. I know some people may be wondering why we're going to this spiritual side of things, but it's necessary to really get, like you said, have a vision for your life. So when it comes back to, I want to come back to impact. You mentioned when you said COVID really didn't hit you guys hard. What does the next 5 years look like for impact? What is your future visions? I know you said small groups teaching financial literacy. You have courses for parents, really teaching how to parent. What does the next 5 years look like for Impact Church?
So the next 5 years looks like we want to be multi-generational. We want to have a place and a campus to build our youth, where youth can start to learn about business. They can start to learn about getting through life with college, without college, because I'm not going to say college is not for everybody. I'm not one of I believe everybody can excel in college, but they've got to make their choice to do that. And if they're making their choice to do something else, then let's find what their choice matches. And so in the next 5 years, we're going to be a place to where we're going to build youth. We're going to build youth in entrepreneur and business development and life sustainability. Then we're going to build seniors, and its impact is going to be a place where senior living can happen, where people will have a place to either take care of their parents, to bring their parents for daily daycare, or to have their parents live in a place to where our seniors, people are forgetting about our seniors. We have 2 parents that can take care of 4 children, but then 4 children that can't take care of 2 parents. And so we want to make sure that multi-generational, there's a place where we're taking care of our youth, we're taking care of our seniors, and then in the middle of that, we're creating, we have a nonprofit at Impact. It's called Community Impact. We're just in the initial stages of building that. But what the PACT in Impact means is people all coming together. So for the next 5 years, people that are coming together for youth, people that are coming together for seniors, Impact will be a hub, a black think tank, a collaboration spot to where people that have desires and goals and visions to take care of their community will all come together and be able to collaborate and really make a difference. If I'm interested in providing housing, then there may be somebody that has some resources to get funding for housing, and then they can collaborate in the midst of that. And so it'll be a multi-generation, in 5 years, it'll be a multi-generational campus to where, in addition to worship, it'll be a 7-day opportunity for people to then build their lives both spiritually, physically, and emotionally, in a place to where they can find all of those needs on campus.
And it goes back to what you just when we initially started this conversation. It's holistic.
Yeah.
You take a holistic view.
Yeah.
And it takes, again, it's one of the things that we strive here at Morehouse in the business department is entrepreneurship. The dean is really big on that. And you're hitting all those strides right now. When you talk about your vision, it was so fluid and you knew exactly what you want to do. It's well thought out. So you have to, it's almost like you know exactly where you're going to be 2030, right? Mm-hmm. And you're preparing for it now to get there. And I think that's pretty awesome because people view the church as being it's a church. You come here, you had a 10 o'clock service, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock service, and that's the doors are kind of dead for the next 6.5 days.
Right.
There's no activity.
Right.
And I think that's you've just shown that this is a 24/7, 365 days operation.
Listen, the tough thing about church is. The great thing about church is you reach people.
Yep.
The tough thing about church is you reach people.
Yep.
The great thing about churches is full of people. The tough thing about churches is full of people. And so we have the opportunity to transform lives. In the Atlanta Public Schools and the Fulton County Schools, they have over 40,000 truant students. That's public knowledge. That's that you can find that information and to see the truth in that. To be truant means you are 10 days or more out of school.
40,000?
40,000. How in the world can we build a generation if we have 40,000 kids missing 10 days or more of school? And what we start... See here's the thing, y'all, that there's a group of magnet students and students that are studying. We are paying attention to them. There's a group of students that are in school suspension, causing problems at school. We're paying attention to them. We have a whole group in the middle that could go either way. And if we start paying attention to that whole group in the middle, then I believe that's going to continue to spill to the side where we're paying enough attention over here and paying enough attention over here. And so how do we do that? Multi-generational. We stop telling stories. We look here. I have to look through the window to see what the rest of the world is like. But that doesn't mean I don't have a story that's going to help somebody out there. And so we've got to start listening to our seniors that have been through life and been through experiences. Even if it sounds crazy to you as a youth, you've got to be able to sit there and just listen. Right. And then as you continue to then navigate through life, then you'll start to see, okay, I understand why I'm being taught to cut my grass now.
That's right.
I understand why I'm being taught to wash the dishes and not let the sink fill up now. I understand why I'm being told I got my first job at 16. Let me save 5% of that. So then by the time I get to be 30, that 5% that I've been saving that I learned at 16, that's long money that now all of a sudden I've got a nest egg. I'm 16, it may seem like 35 is 20 years away, but 20 years is going to go that. Yeah. And by the time you're 35 and you're fresh 10 years out of college, now you're ready to, you got something that you can buy a home with, get something that's going to be an asset and build on something and build on wealth, which you thought about it back here, and all of a sudden it's here, and you're ready.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that because today I said that, Ron. You remember I said about in class. I said the biggest. A lot of times in class, I'm going through some complex formulas and stuff. I'll take a pause and let them kind of digest it a little bit, and I'll talk about something just doesn't have anything to do with the class. But today I said, because I said I don't have a lot of regrets, but one regret I have is that my mom used to always say, when I'm home, go see your granddad, go see your granddad, go see your granddad. And I never did. I always wanted to go do something else. I'd go see him. Love my granddad. I'd go see him. But I didn't spend the time and all that information. My grandfather died at 90, 91, 90, 93, something like that. And his mind was sharp. 93, his mind was sharp. And I didn't take advantage of that. All that information, someone basically born near slavery, Jim Crow, all that information I could have gathered,
Right.
and I missed out on it.
Yeah.
As to your point, we have to listen to everybody because it's all generations. It's all generations. My mom, my grandfather, my mom, and me. That's 3 different generations right there. That
Right.
at one time,
Right.
if you think about it, I could have taken advantage of. So,
Right.
we have to do a better job of giving back, but we have to do a better job of really seeing our younger people.
Right.
Not just talking to them, but actually see them.
Yeah.
And when you see them, then they know it's a safe place.
Absolutely.
And that's that. And ultimately, that's the to me that's the goal.
Yeah.
So
So if any of you guys, if y'all resonated with anything that Mr. Thibodeaux and obviously Professor Young
He called
talked
me
about,
He called me Bishop.
if y'all resonated with anything, I want y'all to hit that like button. And if you saw and if you heard anything that you think somebody else needs to know or your friend, make sure you share this video to one person. But Mr. Thibodeaux, I want to ask you, am I saying it wrong?
You good.
I must be saying it wrong.
No. You called him.
You said Bishop.
Bishop.
I said Bishop?
You said Bishop.
Oh, man.
I don't know if that was a prophecy, but go ahead.
But
It's on now.
Pastor Thibodeaux, where can they find more about the church? And if they want to get in contact with you, how can they do that?
Our www.impactdcd.org. Remember, doing church differently. Impact, IMPACT, DCD.org. Doing church differently is our website. My email is paul@impact. Here it is again, DCD.org. paul@impactdcd.org.
I'll make sure to leave that in the description. You have something else?
I do. Do we have like another 2 minutes? I just want to.
Oh, we got plenty of time for you.
Oh, well, listen.
You went to you from Chicago.
Well,
you got the Chicago pass.
Hey,
Southside pass.
That's right.
There you go.
Laugh.
There you go.
Listen, you said both of you, when you talked about this is a spiritual slant onto what you normally do. I'm gonna tell you why that's so important, and I want everybody to hear this. We are spiritual beings going through a human existence. We're not human beings going through a spiritual existence. We are spiritual beings going through a human existence. Let's be practical. How do I know that? When we die, this is all that's left. That you see your existence that is left. Your spirit is gone. I don't care what you believe. You're a Christian, believe it. But I don't care what you believe. When everybody dies, this is what's left. And so we are spiritual beings. So everything is spiritual. Yeah. And when you talk about our ancestors, we are living through residual effects of the transatlantic slave trade now.
Absolutely.
And that's because spiritually, I mean, what do you think happened to us spiritually to have our families de-religionized, dehumanized, de-physicalized, taking everything away?
Yep.
And what does that do to our spirit? And so even in our homes now, everybody's doing the best that they can. But it's one thing to be doing things in life. It's one thing to do things in life, but it's another thing to not know why you do them. And so as we talk about the different things to help in financial literacy, we talk about the different things, to help when we're trying to help the community, it's important for all of us to know why we do what we do.
That's right.
And that's where the spirit comes in, because what we've gone through in life will affect us what we're doing unless we really know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And that is not always a easy thing to do, because it's hard to look back. It's hard to look back at the pain that has been caused in our life, which then caused us to do something as a result of that pain.
Yeah, no, that's so true. You mentioned something, and I know when I started telling people I was teaching here at Morehouse and stuff, and a couple of my classmates, and one in particular, Pastor Derek Rice, who you know,
yeah,
and he said when he sent me a text, he said, "Man, our ancestors just shed a tear," and that hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're doing God's work," and I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And so, hey, it's great having you here.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, it's been a blessing being here.
I just need 1 minute, sir.
Go ahead.
I can't even do it.
I know you
I can't even do it.
That must mean the Lord is telling you.
I can't do it, but I can't do it. I don't want to do it. That's all right. I'm gonna let you off the hook because they know we were gonna talk about football. We were gonna talk about high school football, and we were gonna talk about the Catholic League, and we were gonna talk about Mount Carmel, which is still at 64th Street off of Stony, and you. I don't know where you guys are located. You guys have moved around.
A little bit.
You moved around,
We've
but
been like the Jeffersons.
yeah.
We moved like this.
You did because you moved to Quigley South, which is a beautiful campus.
Yeah,
When I fly on Southwest, the next thing you see the fields.
There's more accoutrements that are available than we've ever had.
That's right. So
we had a swimming. I don't know how to swim because we didn't have a swimming pool. So I didn't have to take swimming.
I just got one question to ask.
Sure.
Did y'all win the state championship this year?
No, we did not this year.
Who won?
But it's a
who won?
I'm really not sure. I have to do that. From the way you're asking me, I would assume that it's probably Mount Carmel.
That's right.
But we started this with it's a process. So we're on the process.
So just trust it.
So we're gonna come back one day when St. Rita finally wins.
And when they do win, guess what? We'll bring you back on.
Yes, we will.
No, I'm just playing.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, like and share this video with one person who you think could benefit from this. But Mr. Thibodeaux, I am so thankful for your time. Professor Young, I'm thankful for yours. Mr. Ryan Mathis from the behind the scenes. We appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Thanks so much.